So you're most welcome. I can see you, Paul Musila from Nakuru. Karibu sana, and Joseph from Machakos, Solomon from Naivasha. Kiambu County is represented by Peter Mutui. Maendeleo Academy Machakos, Anastasia Mutuko is here. Nancy Kelly from Quisera in Kakamega. From Tiati East, Baringo, that is Kiprop. Wilson, you're welcome to today's webinar. Justin from Kiambu, St. Truth Academy. Mark Murunga from Nairobi, that's Christ Community School. Thank you for joining us. Let your colleague teachers know we are starting off. And our trainer is already here, ready to share with us. As we start, allow me to show you one of the QR codes we have included for you in our grade 5 science textbook, our course book. That is Everyday Science. This QR code, if you scan it, and once you scan it, it will guide you to this video, which I believe we can listen to as we have a few more minutes before we start off. So once you scan it with your phone using the Google Lens on your Google search bar, this is a video that comes up on the breathing system. I believe we can listen in, and I hope you can hear the sound from your end. You let me know.
Dust and other particles in the air, making it clean. This air then moves to the lungs through the trachea. The diaphragm moves downwards to allow of gases takes place in the lungs. Oxygen moves from the lungs into the blood. Carbon dioxide moves from the blood into the lungs. The diaphragm moves upwards. This forces air in the lungs to get out through the trachea and the nose. This is breathing out. When breathing in, air enters through the nose. Hair in the nose traps dust and other particles in the air, making it clean. This air then moves to the lungs through the trachea. The diaphragm moves downwards to allow air to enter the lungs. Exchange of gases takes place in the lungs. Oxygen moves from the lungs into the blood. Carbon dioxide moves from the blood into the lungs. The diaphragm moves upwards. This forces air in the lungs to get out through the trachea and the nose. This is breathing out.
So that's how easy and quickly you can access digital content that is in our course books, because we have spread these QR codes across different substrands and lessons in the textbook. So if you're using any of our science books, agriculture, English, Kiswahili, math, you find the QR codes inserted in various parts of the textbook. They will come as video clips, they will come as quizzes, they come as audios, video clips like this one I've just shown you, and every manner of engagement can happen in class between the teacher and the learner as they interact with the QR code. So you don't have to go too far to look for digital content. Once you have the textbooks from Oxford University Press, you'll indeed enjoy the digital component and digital literacy, which is part of the core pillars and core competencies of CBC. So our trainer is already here. And I've seen a few more teachers have joined in, and thank you for taking time to be with us. Munyendo Adam from Guiding Shining Stars Academy, Jotham Mutuma from Nairobi, and Kiangwe Zaya, thank you for always being present, from Kuria East Sub-County, Migori. Nelson Chikira from Sun and Shield Primary and Junior School. You're most welcome. to today's webinar. Thank you for finding time to be with us today. Allow me to share the profile of our trainer so that we can get started. Since he's already here with us, we can save some time by starting on time, and we have enough time to ask questions at the very end. So let me put that on slideshow so that it's big enough. But yeah, okay, sorry. So our trainer for the day is known as Jacob Odhiambo. He holds a PhD in development studies with a bias in education. Among his past work experiences, he's been a senior trainer, in physics and primary science at Semastea, a teacher trainer in science at Migori Teachers College, a high school teacher in physics and mathematics at Nyahururu High School, Jonjo Girls High School, and Migori Secondary School, a member of science panel at KICD for primary and teacher education, and he's held trainings for teachers in South Sudan and Swaziland on improving quality of education. He's also been involved in trainings in Japan, Malaysia, and Israel on improvement of quality of education through lesson study and education innovation. He's currently an education consultant on the quality aspects of education and an author with Oxford University Press, East Africa in Science and Technology, grade 5 and 6, which we'll tackle today, and integrated science in grade 7, 8, and 9. Dr. Jacob Odhiambo is already here. Doctor, you can hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Karibu sana, you can take it up from here.
Thank you.
I'll ask the teachers to put in any questions that you'd want us to be answered. You'd want answered by the trainer in the Q&A chat box, which is different from the one you're typing in right now. Check out for the Q&A chat box, which will help us trace your questions and we can be able to answer them at the end of the session. Karibu Daktari.
Thank you very much, Susan. And let me take this opportunity to welcome you teachers to this webinar today. The title is already there. We are holding a training or an interaction on grade 5 and 6 science and technology. In this training, we have the following outcomes. And by the end of the training session, with the participants, you will be able to outline the differences between the earlier curriculum and the revised curriculum in regards to science and technology, grades 5 and 6. You should also be able to interpret the curriculum design for science and technology, grade 5 and 6. This one I know you know very well, but we're just going to update ourselves and also outline the learning methods in science and technology. You should also be able to outline the methods of assessment in science and technology. As you know, teaching will be incomplete without the assessment. So we are just going to outline those methods. And also by the end of the interaction, we hope that you will appreciate Science and Technologies, a learner's book and teacher's guide from Oxford University Press. Up there you can see the covers or pages of our grade 5 Science and Technology learner's book and our grade 6 Science and Technology learner's book. So I hope you are going to be an active participant and enjoy the training. Let's start by looking at the differences between the earlier curriculum designs for grade 5 and 6, in science and technology. We are going to focus on the curriculum designs because, as you know, there was a presidential working party on education reforms. That is what has prompted some changes in the whole curriculum. You must have heard of this word rationalization. This one refers to the whole curriculum where some learning areas were merged, and the recommendation was that the learning areas were too many and they were to be reduced. That was what some people commonly refer to as rationalization. Now, when you come to the particular curriculum designs, they were revised to accommodate the content areas from other subjects, and also to take care of anything which was not clear in the curriculum designs. And in that curriculum reforms called the review, some learning areas were removed. Like now in upper primary, we don't have science, even life skills we don't have. They were taken to other learning areas. Now the changes in the curriculum design for science and technology, we'll highlight just two changes. Some content were moved to other grades. That is from the grade 5 and 6, science and technology. Some content were moved. We are going to see that shortly. And also some content were moved to other learning areas. For example, computing was moved to pre-tech. In the next slide now, we just want to highlight the content areas that were affected.
Dr. If I could interrupt you, please come closer to your microphone. There are teachers who are saying your volume is very low. Or you
yes.
could increase the volume of the machine you're using. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Yes, in this slide, you can now see the content areas in grade 5, science and technology, the old one and the revised one. In the old one, you can see very quickly that we had 5 strands: living things, health education, environment, computing devices, matter, force and energy, earth and space. Then in that previous curriculum design, or the old one, the ones highlighted in red have been removed. I may not need to go to each of them for the sake of time. Now, in the revised curriculum, which we are now using now, and if you look at the books, the learners' books, we have now only 3 substrands. That is the curriculum design from the KICD. The 3 substrands in the revised curriculum design are living things, matter, and force and energy for grade 5. Yeah, so that if you are using any book, I've come across schools where they don't have the new books. Check that the curriculum design for grade 5 in science and technology, there are only 3 substrands that we are supposed to teach. Going to grade 6, again, the previous curriculum design had 5 strands: living things, environment, computing devices, matter, and force and energy. And as you can see from grade 5, computing science was moved to another learning area. Again, the ones highlighted in red have been moved. Let me just take, for example, living things in the old curriculum design. Parts of a plant and types of roots were moved, I think, to lower grades, but invertebrates and human circulatory system were retained. Human reproductive system was also removed. I think it is taken to the upper grades. And all that you can see in red has been moved to other grades. So that now in the reverse curriculum, we have 3 substance again, living things, tackling fungi, invertebrates, and human circulatory system, matter, dealing with mixtures and water pollution, then force and energy, dealing with floating and sinking, sound energy, and heat transfer. So when you are using books, I know there are very many books that can use, or even searching for the internet. The advice is you consult the curriculum design very closely so that you are in tandem with the revised curriculum design. Then let's now move to the curriculum design, how we can interpret it. Again, this one I think you know very well that science and technology is one of the learning area. Science and technology is one of the learning areas in upper primary. In the junior school, it will be called integrated science, but here we call it science and technology. Although technology in terms of computing devices was removed, but the name is still retained because we are going to use a lot of digital devices in the learning of science. And also the curriculum design, the arrangement of the strands have not changed. We still have the strands and the substrands. And each of the substrands still has the learning outcomes and also the suggested learning experiences. In the next slide, just want us to see a snapshot of a page from the curriculum design, grade 6. You can see there, strand has been the way it has been before. This is a sample showing that the strand there is living things and their environment. If you are keen, you see that the environment was a strand in the old curriculum design, but it has now been merged under living things. And by the way, the definition of environment is just the surrounding of a living thing. So the curriculum developers saw it wise to have it under living things and not as a standalone strand. So you can see now we have the living things and the environment as the strand, and the substance there is the fungi. And the number of lessons are also given, 12 lessons, to guide the teacher. So if you find that this substance fungi you are teaching in maybe 10 lessons, then there's something missing. Or if you are teaching it in 15 lessons, then it would mean maybe you are giving too much. So there's a guide there under that column of substance, even the content areas to cover. And this content area is very important because it will help the teacher in coming up with the lessons. How it will help the teacher is look at column 3 where we have specific learning outcomes. In this substance, there are only 3 specific learning outcomes, but there are 12 lessons. So you can see 3 outcomes to be covered in 12 lessons. So looking at the outcomes and the content area, the teacher is able to come up with those 12 lessons as recommended in the curriculum design. Then now the learning experiences, it is written there that they are suggested. They are suggested, which means you can alter them slightly depending on your environment, but not just ignoring them completely. The word suggested there seems that you have a lot of room to alter them, but don't just overhaul them. They just guide you. for example, the bullet number 1, the learner is guided to use paint and non-paint materials to search for images of common fungi such as share findings with peers. So that one in your class, for example, if you have a problem of using maybe non-print medias like computers, then you can use the print media because both are suggested, or you can use both. You can use one or both. That is what suggestion there means. And then let's look at the last bullet where you are supposed to discuss the economic importance of molds. The molds are given importance of molds, yeasts, mushrooms. Then if there's any other fungi which is common in your area, then you can include it in the discussion. But remember, our education system relies very much on external exams. And external exams, for example, in this case, they will test the learners on the importance of molds, yeast, and mushrooms. So it is very important you be very keen on the suggested learning experiences. And then in the curriculum design, we have the core competencies that are supposed to be developed in that substrand, and they are listed there. They're listed there, for example, in this case, one of them is learning to learn, the other one is self-efficacy. There are others. I've not captured the whole page, but if you go to the curriculum design, you will see all the core competencies for that substrand. The PCIs are also there, and the values are also there. So this is what I can say about the interpretation of the curriculum design. And then there is a suggested key inquiry question at the last column. That is very important. It will guide activities and discussions. For example, by the end of this substrand, the learner should answer this question: how is fungi important in nature? They should answer that question. And any other question that you can come up with, these are just that is just a suggested key inquiry question. You can add more to it. Just as a recap, there's a poll question here. Dear participants, there's a poll question here because as we continue, we also want to recap on what we have discussed. So this is our poll question. You will write your responses in the chat. Which of the following is one of the strands in the revised curriculum design for science and technology, grade 5? Which one of the following is one of the strands in the revised curriculum design for science and technology, grade 5? Is it computing devices, matter, or environment? You have 2 minutes to respond to that poll question.
Thanks, Daktari. I can see a lot of answers coming in.
You can read them for me.
Yeah, there are some, a good number are saying matter, number B. And then someone is saying computing devices. Another teacher says all. Matter is a predominant answer, but then we have a few that are mentioning computing devices. Yeah, so we need, it looks like there's a clear lead of B as the answer, matter, but there's also a few that are mentioning computing devices, so probably could guide us from there.
Yeah, thank you very much, participants. as you have just discussed that computing devices has been moved as a strand. Okay, we use computing devices to do some activities, but as a strand, it is no longer there in grade 5. Environment also as a strand, it is no longer in grade 5, but the content of environment, as we have seen, is incorporated under living things. Now, matter is one of the strands. So matter is the correct response. It is one of the strands in the revised curriculum design for grade 5. I think we can continue. Thank you very much, participants. Let's now look at the learning methods which are covered through activities. Now, for the learners, we cannot just teach them that now we are doing a practical method or this method. They are just covered through activities. It is the teachers at the back of our mind. We know that this one, we are going through this particular learning method. So the learning methods for, I'm sorry, it is for science and technology, not integrated science. By the way, they are just brothers. So the learning methods for science and technology, these are the learning methods. The practical work. Practical work is where we have some hands-on activities. The learners are doing something using the hands in most cases. Then we also have reading a story, very stimulating because life is full of stories. When the learners are alone, they have some stories, listening to some stories or telling some stories. So this one is a very good learning method. Then use of digital resources. That one is very important. Then use of resource persons. Resource persons are knowledgeable people in the community. And they can be invited to school to talk to learners, or if they are nearby, the learners can go to them. For example, if there is a shopkeeper, you can go to the shop and then they talk to the learners about certain aspects of science that are used in the shop, or a welder around there, or an electrician. So resource persons can be invited, or learners can reach them, of course, with the guidance and the company of a teacher. Then the project is a good learning method and used where the time for the lesson, which is 40 minutes, is not enough to complete a task. So that task, usually hands-on task, needs more time than the 40 minutes. Therefore, it is done as a project. So the method used there will be project work. The teacher will give guidance at the start of the project and also monitor the learners as the project continues. Then another method is the science work. It is called a work because it is supposed to be completed within the lesson. A lesson of 40 minutes is enough for a science work where the learners can move out of the class. It can be within the school compound or very near to the school. The guiding principle is that they should be able to complete the work within the lesson of 40 minutes and be back to class ready for the next lesson. It is different from a trip where they can take a whole day or a few hours, and a trip now requires more time than the time allocated in the lesson. Then the other method that we use in science and technology is fun time. Children like a lot of fun. So in the upper primary, they are still very young children. They like a lot of fun. They like a lot of fun. That is why children smile and laugh. So fun time should be a very important learning method. Now we'll capture some extracts from our learners' books, how these methods have been used in the class situation. And the activities that are covering the learners, the learning methods. They are varied. They are varied because one lesson can use one or two learning methods, and they are varied from one lesson to another. And this is an expectation in the competency-based curriculum and competency-based learning. So let us look at how these learning methods have been used in a classroom setup, starting with the practical work. Practical work, as I've said, is involving hands-on and some discussions. And in our learner's book, a step-by-step guidance is provided, which are very easy to follow, and with some illustrations in all the cases. For example, here we have a lesson, an activity picked from grade 5 on the learning of mixtures. And you can see there a step-by-step guidance on how to carry out the practical work, and also an illustration on how to carry out the practical work. In this case, it is filtering a mixture of sand and water. Children learn very well by pictures. That is why our books accompany the steps by some very good illustration. The second method is reading a story. And in the learner's books, the story is simple because the learners have not developed very much in vocabulary. So the story is a very simple language, captivating with illustrations. Illustrations are very useful because learners, once they see a picture, their understanding is improved. So here is a story in grade 5 when they are learning about vertebrates. They are learning about vertebrates, and the story is about the learners seeing a frog, talking about the frog. And through that story, once they read it, they understand more about the frog. So this is a very important learning method, that is reading a story of real life situations. The next learning method is projects, as we had mentioned. It requires more time than the time provided in the lesson. So here we have learners making a candle. Making a candle needs a lot of time. Again, in the learner's book, the project, there's the materials are specified for the learners, and also step-by-step guidance with some illustrations. The other method is now the use of resource persons. As I've said, a resource person is invited to school or children go to it. In this, our example from grade 5, when they are learning about the breathing system, in that school called Sifaju Primary School, they found it wise that they invite a medic, somebody working in the hospital, who has very good knowledge on matters pertaining to health and the breathing system. So you can see there, the resource person is talking to the learners. Of course, it must be in the presence of the teacher. This is a very good learning method, which you are all encouraged to use when appropriate. The other learning method is use of digital resources. And in our books, there are two approaches to the use of digital resources. One is using the QR code. At the beginning of this session, you are shown how you can scan the QR code There was a sample of a QR code there, which was scanned, and then it gave us a video. So the QR code, you need to scan it using your smartphone. You just install the app for scanning a QR code. Then there's a lot of resources there. Videos are there, animations are there, pictures are there, even questions are there. Once you scan the QR code and it opens. That is one of the ways in which our books are presented, the use of digital resources. The other approach is referring the learners to the internet, using the digital device to search for information that is required at that particular lesson. In this case, you can see there the learners are required to search for information on different invertebrates. This one is grade 6. Then that information, of course, they will discuss in class. Then the science work is also there. A case of learning about invertebrates in grade 6. The learners went for a walk. They went for a walk and they were observing a variety of invertebrates in their environment. This is a very important method. And then usually outside the class, it may not be very safe. So the learners are given a caution. In the learner's book, they are given a caution. You can see there in this particular case, they are cautioned not to destroy habitats of invertebrates, like the small insects, the ants. They don't just destroy the habitats unnecessarily, and they don't remove them from their habitats. Like if they see, like for example, I can give an example of some insects, or some insects like the pupa stage of insects. The pupa stage of insects, they should not just remove it from that habitat, because that is interfering with the environment, and the learners are supposed to conserve the environment. Actually, the learners and even the teacher and everybody else. So that caution is necessary during a science work, and also for their own safety, because some of the invertebrates are harmful. Then the last is the fun activity. You can see there in the learner's book from Oxford, there's quite a number of fun activities. Actually, there are many. These are just two examples. One is where the learner is supposed to imagine that he or she is a water droplet in the sea. Then they write their journey through the water cycle. That is evaporation, condensation, cooling back, and all that. It will be fun for them to imagine that each of them is a water droplet. Then another one is they write a poem on the importance of fungi. They recite a poem with gestures and some movements, and that I think will provide them with a lot of fun. All this is to make learning very enjoyable for learners. So we have covered the learning methods that are commonly used. It may not be exhaustive, but these are the ones commonly used in the learning of science and technology. And in summarizing the learning methods, we should note that the methods in CBC are designed to promote inquiry-based learning. CBC is anchored on inquiry-based learning. That is, learners find out. Don't just tell. You can tell when necessary, but in most cases, we expect the learners to be given an opportunity to find out, to carry out some inquiry. And this is what is called inquiry-based learning. When they inquire and find out by themselves, they remember for a longer time, and their understanding of the concepts are improved. And also the learning methods are designed to promote, to develop and promote the core competencies and values. We are going to see shortly that in the learner's book, these core competencies, values, and PCIs are infused in the lessons. So that is all about the learning methods. Let us go to the poll question. Again, there you can see the learner's book again. For those who joined us late, you can see we are talking about the learner's book, grade 5 and grade 6. Everyday Science and Technology, learner's book grade 5 and learner's book grade 6. Poll question 2. A grade 6 science teacher planned for an activity in which the learners were required to make periscopes. Which one of the following learning methods would be suitable for the activity? Grade 6 learner planned that the learners make a periscope. Which of the following methods would be suitable for that activity? Would it be a science walk to make a periscope? Would it be use of a resource person to make a periscope? Or would it be a project? You have 2 minutes to respond to that poll question.
Thanks, Dr. The answers are already flooding the chat box, and I can't see any other answer apart from projects. From the first to the last teacher who has typed in, they have typed in projects. Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you very much. Everybody has got it right. That means you are very attentive. You can see making a periscope requires a lot of time, more than 40 minutes. And if they are going for a science walk is mainly for observing things. Could be living things, or maybe a structure like a building. They want to see a building with ventilations. So this one would not be suitable. Using of a resource person, this one the teacher can handle. The teacher can handle himself or herself. You don't need a resource person to make a periscope. Just identify the suitable resources and guide the learners. So the correct answer is project work. Project work. Main reason, it requires time. So far, I think we have reminded ourselves of the important or the most common learning methods. Then, as I mentioned earlier, teaching would be incomplete without assessment. So in the learner's book, there is self-assessment because the book belongs to the learner. The learner has the book. So the book has some self-assessment for the learners. This self-assessment in learner's book 5, they are called self-check. Like you can see there, we have self-check on the substrand 2.2. You can see there are just two questions, but we have more. This one just a screenshot of that page. There are usually more than that. You can go up to 15, up to 20 for the learner to self-check. In grade 5, the self-assessment of the learners is called checkpoint. Checkpoint. So as they continue learning, there's a checkpoint so that they can assess themselves whether they are getting the concepts right or to what extent they are understanding the concept. Again, here you can see there are only 2 questions, but when you go to the learner's book, those questions are many. And the purpose of the self-assessment is to enable the learners to assess themselves on the acquisition of the intended knowledge and skills. Intended knowledge and skills. And they are so varied to capture the different knowledge and skills in a substrand. These self-check questions or checkpoint questions can also be used by the teacher. I know some teachers will just pick the questions and ask the learners, can you answer the following questions? Which is not bad, but teachers should have it in mind that the learners have these books, they have gone through the questions. So my advice is that the teacher can also have similar questions for that substrand to complement or supplement this self-assessment question. They should not just rely wholly on the self-assessment question, because some learners are very sharp. They will have answered all the questions and they have checked with the notes in the learner's book. And if the teacher is not giving more than that, they may feel bored. Usually, such sharp learners feel bored if they are not getting enough. So advice to the teachers, please bring in some more questions. If you have to use these ones, then bring in some more questions for the learners to respond to. Let's now go to the teacher's guide, which is very important because as the learners have their books, and by the way, the learners' books are also used by the teachers. The teachers have the learner's book and also the teacher's guide. And the teacher's guide from the Oxford Press, the teacher's guide is divided into two parts. The first part is just introduction, giving some background knowledge that the teacher should have in going about the teaching exercise. One of the knowledge we feel that the teacher should have is the basics of CBC, the basics in terms of the core competencies. There are 7. Which ones are they? So we keep on reminding ourselves of the core competencies, and the teacher's guide has that one. The pertinent and contemporary issues. The teacher's guide has a list of those that are recommended in the CBC, the Kenyan CBC. The teacher's guide also has some basic knowledge on the parental empowerment and engagement. This one has been a very controversial area. Some parents think that they are supposed to take the place of teachers. So there's guidance on how the parents should engage in the learning of their children, and also on community service learning. What should be done when we are carrying out community service learning? All this information is provided in the teacher's guide in that first part. The first part of the teacher's guide also provides information on the learning methods that we have been going through. It is important for the teacher to know what the learning methods mean. For the learners, we are not going to tell them that this learning method is called storytelling or reading a story, but the teacher should know why to use the learning methods and when to use the learning methods. Again, the teacher's guide has information on how to accommodate diverse learning abilities. Diverse learning abilities is important in the competence-based learning. That is why if you read the information on CBC, you'll find something about multiple intelligence. Learners learn differently because they have different learning abilities. For example, somebody said that we do not have weak learners. What we have is ineffective teaching. Teaching can be ineffective if they don't take care of the different learning abilities. So the weak learners, we think they are weak simply because maybe they were not exposed to the learning abilities, the different learning abilities. Some learners would like to learn by maybe storytelling, some by doing hands-on activities. So when these ones are missing in our teaching, then you find some learners may not learn very well, and then we say that they are weak. But in actual sense, maybe we have not taken care of their learning abilities. The teacher's guide also has information on the sources of learning resources. This is very important. The teacher is supposed to guide the learners in sourcing for the learning resources in the environment, and even some to be bought. For example, in some activities, some activities are supposed to buy apparatus. So the teachers should know where to buy the apparatus from, and which apparatus should be bought, and also in the environment, what does the environment offer in terms of the learning resources, and then now guide learners in sourcing for those learning resources. And then the teacher's guide also provides information on the CBC assessment. We may not have time to go into the details of CBC assessment, but very soon we are just going to have a look at some. The teacher's guide also gives guidance on each of the learning activities in the learner's book. Actually, this is the bigger part of the teacher's guide, because the activities are very many, from strand 1 up to the last strand, and all the sub-strands have many activities. So this one forms part of the bigger part of the teacher's guide. It's a guidance on each of the activities. Just something on the types of assessment, types of competence-based assessment. There are assessment by the teacher and assessment by the learner. This is very important in competence-based assessment. In the other curriculum, it's only the teacher who is supposed to assess, but in the competence-based assessment, the learner plays a bigger role in the assessment. So the teacher carries out formative assessment. That is the questions or assessment we do as we teach, or after teaching several lessons, or after teaching several topics. This is called formative. Formative is to inform teaching, so that if there's some remedial work to be done, it is done. Summative assessment can be done, for example, at the end of the term, at the end of the year, or at the end of a course, like grade 6. Grade 6, they can do a summative assessment on what they covered from grade 4, 5, and 6. That one is done by the teacher. The learner can carry out assessment in 2 ways. Peer assessment, this is where a learner can assess another learner, or they form a group and they assess each other. Or one learner can test some, have some questions, and then other learners respond to those questions. That is peer assessment. Self-assessment is a learner assessing himself or herself, maybe going to the learner's book or any other reading material, and then they respond to the questions that are presented there. That is self-assessment. Again, in the teacher's guide, it is guiding the teacher on the various assessment methods. How do you assess? You can assess through practical work. You can assess learners through observation, observing them. This is very important in observing the core competencies. For example, critical thinking. You just observe how they are talking, how fast they are answering the questions, how accurate they are answering the question. So that one can assess the core competencies, the PCIs by observation. Written work, this is very clear, you know it very well. Give them written questions and they respond. Oral questions, again, ask oral questions and then they respond. Oral questions, these are questions which are from maybe from a tape. They listen to the question and then they respond to the questions. That is oral questions. And also project work. How do we assess project work? Assessing a project work may be different from maybe just practical work and observation. So these are the types of assessment methods that is used in competency-based learning. As we continue, before we go to the next, let us now recap again with the poll question 3. The type of assessment in which learners assess each other is known as, is it peer assessment, formative assessment, or summative assessment? The type of assessment in which learners assess each other is known as peer assessment, formative assessment, summative assessment. You have 1 minute. This one is very short to respond to that poll question.
Yes.
Susan, you can read.
Yeah, the teachers have put in peer assessment, though I have seen B is formative assessment, but the majority have put in A, peer assessment.
Yeah, that's very good. It's peer assessment. Formative assessment and summative assessment, those ones are done by the teacher. Peer assessment is done by the learner, where the learners assess themselves. By the way, this one is a very important approach to assessment. I hope teachers are using that. Yes, go to assessment tools. Assessment tools. In assessment, we use assessment tools, and an assessment tool is an instrument used to determine the extent. The word extent is highlighted. It is to determine the extent to which learners have achieved specific learning outcomes. Because learners are different, so a tool will determine the extent. And this one will also give feedback to the teacher on areas to improve, or if there's some remedial work to be done, then the extent will give a very important feedback to the teacher. So this is the purpose of an assessment tool. And there are very many. There are very many assessment tools. Because you are teachers, you have been using these assessment tools, I just want us to recall the tools and name any 5 tools that are used in competency-based assessment, particularly the ones you have been using. Any 5. If you could give more, the better. Give any 5 assessment tools that are used in competency-based assessment. This one, you have 5 minutes to respond to the poll question.
Yeah, so teachers, if you can put all the 5 together in your answer. I'm seeing some of us just listing 1. If you're not able to get to the 5, at least give 2 or so. Yeah, and I can see teachers are typing in. There's checklist, portfolio, rubric, observations. That's someone who's calling himself Samsung. I hope that's not how you've registered yourself, because I'm not sure how we'll give you your certificate. We might have a problem there. Yes, I'm seeing rating scale. I'm seeing authentic tasks, written tests, rubrics, oral questions. Yes, a lot is being typed in. Our portfolio is repeated by so many, and written assignments, written tests, checklist, observation, Q&A. So we have a whole assortment here, Daktari. On the chat.
I've captured rating scales, rubrics, portfolio, checklist, and observation. That's quite good. In the teacher's guide by Oxford, and also in the CBC documents, these are the tools. These are the tools that are recommended for assessments of competence-based learning, and these ones are in the curriculum design. They are in the curriculum design. That means the KICD has recommended these ones for use by the teachers in assessing competence-based learning. You can see there we have 10. We have 10 of them, so you can check the lists versus yours. You can check the list versus yours, the ones which you are coming up. Can see observation. We call it observation schedule. Schedule there means in observing something, let's say the learners are carrying out a practical, there are specific things you want to observe. That's why it's called a schedule. Or another name is called observation guide. You cannot just say that I want to go and observe learners doing a practical. You must have what you are going to observe. Are you going to observe how they are assembling the apparatus, how quickly they are doing that? Do they need some help? How are they making observations? Are they writing down the observations? So you have to write down what you are going to observe. This is a tool called observation schedule. Then the rating scale, as the name suggests, rating scale will rate the learners as we usually use 1, 2, 3, where 1 means maybe low achievement, 2 is average, 3 is above average. Or you can use 1 to 4 or 1 to 5. But the most commonly used rating scale is 1 to 3. Then the questionnaire. Questionnaire is usually used where we want opinions. We want opinions like we want to get some how the learners are feeling about something, or maybe about working together. Are they comfortable with their friends? If one of their friends maybe abuses them, how do they behave? So a questionnaire usually captures opinions, feelings, and observations. Journals capture what the learners have been doing. Projects, practical work, stories they have written, poems they have written, that is captured, can be captured in journal. And the tool will capture what the learners have done. Then the checklist, again, checklist, we have a sample. I'll show you. The checklist is a yes or no on particular tasks given to the learners. Have they done the task, or they are not able to do the task? That is a checklist. We are going to look at it again. Learning portfolio. Very close to the journal. Very close to the journal, but has several things. Now, all these tools are well illustrated in the teacher's guide. So I may not spend a lot of time here. Just get hold of the teacher's guide from Oxford, and all those tools are well illustrated with samples and where they are being used, the lessons where they are being used. Rubric, I think you are very familiar with this. Meeting expectation, approaching expectation, exceeding expectation, all that. Then anecdotal records is a tool to capture certain specific behavior of learners. For example, learners were stranded somewhere, they could not, or maybe they are running away after doing a science walk. They were scared by some animal, they were running away. Then a learner came and cooled them down and said, no, that animal is not dangerous. Something like that is a very unusual happening. So is captured in anecdotal records. You assess the learners. Are they displaying certain extraordinary behavior or some unique behaviors? And the teacher can assess them on that. Then oral tool, again, a teacher can have a question and read the question orally or record the question somewhere. Then now it becomes oral. The questions are recorded, and then the learners listen to the questions and answer the question. Then again, the project work, there's also a guidance on the teacher's guide on how to assess a project work. So these are the tools that are used in a competence-based assessment. And here we have an example. You cannot display all the samples given in the teacher's guide, but here you can see this is a checklist. And before the sample is given, there's a description. For example, here you can see there's a checklist, and it is a list of characteristics of a learner's behavior that is used in the development of specific aspects. So this one was a learning task, drawing a flower and labeling the parts. Drawing a flower and labeling the parts. And then the checklist is, was the learner able to draw a flower correctly? Was the learner able to label the parts correctly? Was the learner able to explain the functions of his part, maybe orally or in written? Then now it can also assess, it also can be used to assess the competence, like for example, competence or value. Was the learner showing respect and love during group work? Yes or no? And was the learner showing integrity when displaying the drawings of a flower? So each learner will be rated yes or no. Here we have Mary, next one will be Joseph, and so on and so forth. This one is a sample of a checklist. We have samples for each of the tools. And then there's a column in the checklist for teachers' comments, not just checking yes or no, yes or no. The teacher also gives a comment. For example, for Mary, Mary is good in most of the areas, but should always label the parts of a flower correctly. So if you look at that column explaining labeling, oh, this Mary did not have a no. Oh, there's a no here, explaining functions of each part. So Mary should label the parts of a flower correctly. For that, because that one will go with the functions of each of the parts. And that's a sample of a checklist alongside others that are provided in the teacher's guide. And then in the teacher's guide, for each activity, the teacher's guide has given suggested learning resources. Suggested learning resources. If the teacher can improve on that, well and good, as long as the learning outcome is achieved. And we are not capturing the learning outcomes in the TG this time. This one was advice from the KSCD so that the teachers use curriculum designs as they teach. If we have everything here, the learning outcomes, then they will throw away the curriculum design. So each teacher is supposed to have a curriculum design, learner's book, and the teacher's guide. The suggested learning resources are given there. This one is for the topic flowering and non-flowering plants, and also steps for carrying out the activity. Carrying out the activity is given. And these activities are matching with the activities in the learner's book. If the learner's book has activity 1, 2, 3, up to 8, then the teacher's guide will also have activity 1, 2, 3, up to 8. with a guidance on each of the activities. These steps are only 3, but some activities have 10 steps or 12 steps, but you don't want the steps to be many. If there are too many, they'll confuse the learner. So the teacher's guide has made them very clear that they are not too many, and again, they are not too few to be vague. So this is the learning on the guidance on each of the activities. And again, because we are dealing with competence-based education, as the learners carry out the activities, the core competencies, PCIs, and values are supposed to be developed within the lesson. There's no topic where, for example, the learners are today we are going to learn about critical thinking. That critical thinking is already infused in the activity. This one, activity factors that affect floating and sinking. So critical thinking is already infused when they are learning about the factors that affect floating and sinking. For example, here, as the learners draw conclusion, no conclusion is, they have to think very fast and in a coherent way. That is critical thinking. So as they draw conclusion on whether shape affects floating and sinking of objects, and they present, this one calls for their critical thinking. You can also see there in the excerpt we have given, there's disaster risk reduction, that is a PCI, which is infused as they handle materials. Some materials can hurt them. Therefore, they're supposed to handle them with care. For example, here they are handling stones. Sometimes they are putting them in glass containers, which can break and hurt them. So this PCI is infused there when they are handling the materials. Again, the value of integrity is also infused there. Integrity being honest. So as they write, they record the findings. A learner can just look at the finding of another person and then copy. And then they say, this one I observed, that learner is not displaying integrity. So here, the teacher should be very keen that the learners develop integrity, and you tell them that they should record what they observe honestly. If they don't observe something, they just say, I didn't observe anything, because that is developing integrity. So you can see that the teacher's guide has guided the teacher on how to infuse the core competencies, the PCIs, and the values. And then there's also assessment methods. We have talked a lot about them. The teacher's guide has suggested assessment methods and tools for the activities, usually at the end of the substrand or for each activity. The teacher's guide has suggested the method and the tool. In this case here, you can see a written test was suitable for that lesson, and oral questions and also observations. And then the tool which was suitable there also could be a checklist. Then I'm coming to an end. Just want to conclude before I give you time to ask questions. In conclusion, we can say that the strands, substrands, and learning outcomes are derived from the curriculum design. So the strands, I used to call them units. Substrands, I don't know if you call them units or headings and subheadings. These ones are derived from the curriculum design. So as you use the textbook, you will see that the textbook, our learner's book, have the same strands, same substrands as they appear in the curriculum design. What may vary after the substrands, maybe the way the way the subtopics are handled and the activities are handled. That is what can, what now depends on the teacher. And now in the teacher's guide, the teacher is guided on how to come up with different activities, different titles for the activities, under very specific headings. Otherwise, the strands, the sub-strands do not change. They are from the curriculum design. And again, in conclusion, I can mention that the learning methods are varied. The learning methods are varied to capture and sustain interest of the learners. To capture and sustain interest of the learners. For example, science work is very stimulating because the learners have sat in class for a long time. They need to go outside and use the environment. We should vary it. If a teacher assesses a lesson and says, this one I should use a science work, please make use of it and vary them. Not just practical. Practical is a very good method, for example. But if they are always doing practical, that can be boring. Sometimes they just read a story, and discuss, or just a resource person to come and stimulate them. And for that, they'll know that the teacher is not only the source of knowledge. There are people outside there who have knowledge. So vary these methods according to the nature of the skills and the concepts to be learned. Again, the assessment tools should be varied to cater for the various aspects of learning. We have seen the many assessment tools, so they should be varied as much as possible. So at that point, we still have some time. I'll allow time for question and answer session.
Thank you very much.
Questions will...
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr.
Susan, you will be reading the questions to me?
Yes. Thank you for the interactive session and very elaborate one too. The science teachers are happy and everyone who has joined us this afternoon. I have a few questions that teachers have put through, allowed me to read them out. So Geoffrey would want to know, he thought suggested learning experiences are derived from specific learning outcomes. Could you kindly elaborate on that, Dr.
Maybe I can write the questions, then respond to them. Two or three questions then.
Okay. And then, are you supposed to write down the core competencies and values before you get to teaching your lesson? The other one is from Obed. CBC focuses on continuous assessment rather than high-stakes exams. How do we ensure consistency and fairness in grading across different schools, especially for grade 9, where the first national assessment would take place?
Please read it again, that question.
Okay, he says that CBC focuses on continuous assessment rather than high-stake exams. Now that so how do we ensure consistency and fairness in grading across different schools, especially for grade 9, where the first national assessment will take place? And then a related question on grade 9, as you sit for the national assessment this year, could you clarify on the structure of the exam? Will it primarily consist of multiple choice questions, structured questions, or a mix of both?
Okay, I can respond to the 4 questions. The first one is suggested learning experiences. Are they derived from the outcomes Are they derived from the outcomes? Yes, they are derived from the outcomes. I'm just displaying a screen where we have suggested learning experiences on living things, on fungi, the substance is fungi, and the learner should be able to identify common fungi in the environment. And then the suggested learning outcome is to take a walk in the school compound. So you can see taking a walk is identifying the common fungi in the environment. This is where the teacher now can, as a leeway, for example, if there's no fungi in the environment, where you can take a walk, it is suggested you take a walk, but if your environment does not have the fungi, then maybe you can bring pictures. You are allowed to do that. Or the teacher can take time to go to to pick the actual fungi and bring them to class. The actual fungi, bring them to class. There are not very many: a toadstool, a mushroom, puffball, yeast. Yeast is very yeast they can see in decaying material. So the answer to that question, that suggested learning experiences are related to the learning outcomes. That's what I can say. And as you can see from the curriculum design, they are related. Then the second question in core competencies and values. If I got the question right, the participant is asking whether we indicate them in the lesson. Issues of the format of lesson plan vary because I think there is a format recommended by KICD. Teachers should have a look at that one, the format recommended by ICD. And we also have officers on the ground, the quality assurance officers. I think they have a format. And in this forum, we don't want to, we don't want to contradict them. But whether you write them down or you keep them in the head, you should know that where necessary, and it is written in the curriculum design. For example, when you are tackling grade 6, living things and the environment, by the end of that substance, somewhere in any of the lessons or 1 or 2 or more lessons, you should have captured learning to learn. Learning to learn. I don't know whether you are required to write it down or, or just remember it in the head, but you must have helped the learners to develop the competency of learning to learn. That is, they are looking for information on their own. They don't need to wait for the teacher to tell them. They need to look for information on their own. So by by the end of that substance, we will have captured learning to learn and self-efficacy. So to respond to your question, whether they are written in a lesson plan or kept in the head, that one now remains to the format that you have been given in the schools. The third question. The third question is on, this one is now on the CBC assessments. It is recommended that the internal on the continuous assessment by the teachers accounts for 50%, and then the final accounts for 60%. So I think the person who asked this question is wondering whether this 40% there'll be consistency. Some teachers are very generous, or they don't want to depict their school as not performing well, so they are very generous with the marks. Well, another person also is very mean with the marks. Another one is also just average. So that is an issue of concern. We may not have an answer now, but some of these things are policies. There are policy issues. There are policy issues. If it will be found that there's no integrity, I think at policy level, there'll be guidance to this effect. Otherwise, the teachers are encouraged to be very honest, to uphold integrity. And I think people are on the ground. They have their eyes and ears on the ground. So if it is found that there's no consistency, I think something will be done. But for now, the continuous assessment will account for 40%. As for now, no policies change. And then it is also related to the structure of exams. Structure of exams at the end of grade 9. That one is the prerogative of the Kenya National Examination Council. They're supposed to come up with the structure. I don't know whether they have come up with one. If they have not, then I think it is just in the pipeline. They are the ones to give the structure of the exams, whether there'll be structured questions, multiple choice questions, practical questions. For example, integrated science is likely to have practical questions. But the final guidance, the policy comes from the government to the Ministry of Education. Then NEC will implement and give us the structure. I don't know if you could, I think the teachers who can also help to find out whether the structure has been released by the Kenya National Examination Council. Okay, those are the 4 questions. We still have some time. I can respond to maybe 2 more because we still have only 8 minutes. Some 2 or 3 questions. Susan, if they are there.
Okay. Someone is suggesting that the teachers can refer to the sample papers, the ones that had been availed on the NEC portal, and that could guide the teachers to know on the format of the testing of the science paper. So I believe we can check out that and we can be able to get that answer we are looking for. Joseph would want to know the science walks during the science walks, which learning experience will be attained. And then someone else had asked about PCIs. When the questions are in the chat box, it's very hard to pick them. That's why I'd prefer them in the Q&A because the chat box is very busy. How do you bring the PCI into the lesson? Should it be an indication in the lesson plan? Maybe this teacher missed out when you were doing your presentation.
Okay. Let me respond to the 2 questions. Thank you very much for that information that the sample papers are already in the NEC portal. And please confirm that it is actually the NEC portal, not any other, because that can be misleading. If the NEC portal has given something, then that is what we go by. Thanks for that information. Then the science walks. The science walks, I didn't get the question well about the science walks.
What the learning experience would be, what should be attained or achieved by the learners during the science walk.
Science walk is everything that the learner does is supposed to achieve a certain outcome. So a science walk is supposed to achieve a particular learning outcome. For example, I've just mentioned one in grade 6, living things and the environment, and they're supposed to identify common fungi in the environment. So the science walk is to enable them identify common fungi in the environment. Maybe in a lesson, the teacher can say that for this science walk, they are just going to identify mushrooms, because the environment is varied. They are going to identify mushrooms, and then there's or toadstools. So it has to be aligned to the learning outcomes. Then PCIs in the lesson plans, again, I said the format of the lesson plans is given by the officers on the ground, the quality assurance officers and the KSCD. If they require you to indicate PCI in the lesson plan, then go by that. If it's not required, then please have them in your notes, because they are the teaching notes. Have them in your teaching notes that at this stage, I'm going to help learners develop the value of integrity. If they are not required in the lesson plan, please have them in your lesson notes so that you don't forget. Because if you just keep them in the head, there is a danger of forgetting. That's what I can say regarding the PCIs, core competencies, and values. Okay, I think Susan, our time is over. Our time is over. We have 4 minutes.
Okay.
Can I take another question, or you want to conclude?
There are some questions teachers are raising from the chat, which I would want to answer them. For those who would want to know whether these books are available, we have them all available from grade 4, 5, 6, and 9. But grade 7 and 8 are going through the process that is known as evaluation or approval at KICD. So grade 7 and 8 are not yet out, but grade 4, 5, 6, and grade 9 are available, not just in science, but in the other subjects too. Actually from grade 1, we have been able to rationalize and revise according to the curriculum designs recently released by KICD. So for those who are asking whether we have an encyclopedia or a summarized book or product, kindly note that KICD lately doesn't recommend encyclopedia for use for the learners. And that was communicated late last year. And therefore, we stick to preparing for you workbooks. And we have had workbooks before, even before the revision of the curriculum. And therefore, we have already rationalized again and revised them for the sake of the learner in all the subjects and every level. So if you go to grade 4, you'll find a workbook in science, in agriculture, in English, in maths, in Kiswahili, and for every learning area. The same goes to grade 5. We have a workbook in every learning area and for the entire grade 5. And in grade 6, we also have the same series. So our workbooks are named after the course book. So if you're looking for one for science, it's called Everyday Science and Technology, just like our course book. If you're looking for one for social studies, it will be titled Our Lives Today, just like our course book. So they're very easy to identify, even if you're doing a book list for learners in your school. So we have workbooks from grade 1 to grade 6 per level and per subject. And in grade 7 or junior school, we have come up with a revision series we are calling Revise and Assess. Again, because as Dr. has said, we don't give too much practice work in the course book because it's mainly supposed to be an activity book. And we are not in a content-based kind of curriculum. So most of the practice work moves now to the workbooks. So the workbooks and revision books are available. For JS, we have grade 7 ready in all the subjects. Grade 8 and 9 will be following. And the whole series is on the screen in every subject. Every subject is represented. And therefore, for that level you're catered for, grade 8 and 9 are following. Yeah, and these are the titles also for grade 8 and 9, 7, 8, and 9. Active Integrated Science is our title. Please remember to ask for a teacher's guide from your head of institution, because without the teacher's guide, you struggle using the learner's book. And the lesson plans, you need to do the schemes, the lesson development, all these activities. they've been included in the teacher's guide. So we made your work very, very, very easy. Make sure you get a copy of a teacher's guide for your reference and for you to guide the learners effectively and efficiently in the classroom. And as I mentioned earlier, we have QR codes, and this is to support you for digital literacy across all classes and across all subjects and across various lessons. And I had already demonstrated one. This is on the breathing system. If you scan that QR code, and scanning the QR code just means you go to your Google search bar. There's a Google Lens on that search bar that looks like a camera on your far right. That Google Lens is the one you click on and point it on the QR code. And once it picks it, that link will open, and then you will be able to access the video clip. The learners can listen in, they can watch it, even if you don't have too many gadgets. Gadgets can even move around the classroom for them just to have the experience of what you're teaching, make it practical, make it fun, make it easy to understand, other than just giving them notes, and other than also just sending them to the internet to search. With the QR code is a direct access to that content. So ensure that you recommend these books so that you can, yourself and the learners can be able to enjoy the extras that we have given up and beyond what is ordinary. So I've already put up a list of our salespeople around the country, because as I mentioned, these titles are available in every subject, not just in science, but even in other subjects, and the workbooks are also available. You can trace the regional representative of where your school is located. You can reach out to them. They are readily available and willing to assist us so that we can be able to acquire these copies for ourselves, for the learners, and be able to assist your head of school or head of institution, so that in case they're wondering where they can source for these books, our sales representatives can assist you. But I've already mentioned they're in bookshops. I don't think you will struggle. But in case of anything, put through an email to me on the same email you used to do your registration, and I can be able to assist. However, our regional representatives are on standby to support you in every way. And the slides will come through to you on the emails you shared, together with the certificates. So the certificate will come to you on soft copy. After you receive it, now you can be able to print it. And the certificate is legit, comes with a logo from the ministry, meaning that these workshops, these trainings are legit, they're authentic. You can be able to use that certificate to access higher levels and go up the ladder in your career. Therefore, we are going to email those together with the slides. You just give us a bit of time to collate all the information we have received from all the teachers, and we'll be able to do so. In case of any other queries to Daktari, kindly email them on my email. We'll be able to answer you. And any other request you have, just use my email. We'll be able to reach back to you. Those who are asking me to type in my email, I'm just putting it in on the chat box so that you can be able to reach me easily. But it's the same email you used to register for the webinars. So this will be the last webinar for now. We'll be putting up some more, but what I would urge you to do is keep checking on our Facebook page, Oxford University Press East Africa. A lot of information goes in there, and any updates we have, even new products, any new developments, upcoming webinars, all the links are sent on the Facebook page, even before we get to inbox you and send in different WhatsApp groups. Always keep checking our Facebook page. You'll be able to get extra information and any updates you may be looking out for. Oxford University Press East Africa is our Facebook page. And for any recordings you may require, any training you missed out on, we've recorded them, and they're already uploaded on Facebook, and they're also uploaded on YouTube. And the YouTube channel is the same, Oxford University Press East Africa. Kindly check if you'd want to go back to these trainings. We've recorded them for you. Check out our Facebook page, Oxford University Press East Africa. Thank you so much for being with us, Daktari. Your final word to the teachers.
Yes, my final word is to thank everyone for taking the time. We cannot take it for granted. I think this shows a lot of commitment to improving teaching and learning in our country. So thank you very much for your time and your participation. Asante.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. You've taken your time to give us a very exciting presentation, thorough and very comprehensive. The teachers are very grateful. If you look at the charts, you'll be able to see the comments and the compliments in there. And I believe our learners will enjoy exciting, fun-filled lessons. And I'm grateful for all the teachers that took their time to join in. I'm sure most of us are on a break or started our break today for midterm, but you took off your time for the sake of the Kenyan learner. I believe it will be different going forward as we go into various, we resume our various lessons next week after we go back to our schools. Thank you very much for joining in. We really appreciate you as Oxford University Press and look forward to interacting more. Any other ideas you have, webinars you're looking forward for us to train you in, please let us know through my email and we will be able to organize for more. Thank you very much for joining. Let's keep in touch and God bless you. Enjoy your evening. Thank you.